I said don't touch it. Victoria Caldwell yanked her phone from Grace's hand. The crystal case caught the lobby light as she held it up, inspecting it like contaminated evidence. Do you know how much this costs? More than you make in a month, I'm sure. Grace stayed on her knees, gathering the scattered lipstick and keys from the marble floor. I'm sorry, ma'am. I was just trying to help. Help? Victoria pulled out a sanitizing wipe, made direct eye contact, and cleaned the phone with slow, deliberate strokes. Stick to mopping. That's what we pay you for. 3 employees stood frozen by the elevator bank, watching, silent. Grace rose slowly, picked up her mop. The phone on the reception desk began to ring. Once, twice. A sharp, insistent sound that cut through the lobby. No one moved to answer it. Grace glanced at the phone, then at her mop, then back at the phone. Have you ever been invisible? Right up until the moment someone desperately needed you to be seen. 30 minutes later, Grace was back in the same lobby. Same mop. Same invisible routine. The reception desk phone rang. Sharp. Insistent. The sound bounced off the marble walls. The receptionist's chair sat empty. Bathroom break. The phone kept ringing. Employees walked past, glanced at it, kept walking. 5th ring, 6th, 7th. Grace wrung out her mop, yellow gloves dripping water back into the bucket. 10th ring. She looked around. No receptionist. The elevator bank had cleared. 15th ring. Grace set down her mop, walked to the desk. Her hand hovered over the receiver for 3 seconds. She picked it up. Hello, Tanner and Associates. The voice exploded in rapid French. Angry. Urgent. No pause for breath. The man shouted about a delayed flight, a canceled meeting, a contract about to collapse. His accent was Parisian, formal, laced with frustration. He threatened to pull 12 million euros if someone competent didn't answer right now. Grace's mouth opened, closed. She glanced toward the executive hallway. No one was coming. Grace took a breath. Monsieur, please. I understand. Let me help you. Her voice shifted. The words flowed in perfect French. Natural, not a textbook. The man stopped mid-sentence. 2 employees passing through the lobby froze, turned, stared. Grace pulled the desk pad closer, grabbed a pen. Still speaking French. Still calm. A 3rd person stopped, then a 4th. The 2nd phone line rang. Grace put the first caller on hold, picked up line 2. Hello, Tanner and Associates. German this time. Fast, technical, asking about Berlin contract specifications. Grace switched languages. Flawless. No hesitation. 7 people are watching now. Then 10. Then 15. Victoria Caldwell stepped out of the elevator, coffee in hand. She saw the crowd, walked closer. Grace handled both calls. French on hold. German live. Taking notes. Problem solving. James Patterson, Vice President of Regional Operations, stopped at the edge of the crowd, his briefcase hung forgotten in his hand. Grace finished the German call, switched back to French, closed the deal. She set down the phone. 30 people stood in silence, staring. Grace looked up. Yellow gloves still on, cleaning cart 10 feet away. I'll find someone to follow up. James stepped forward. No, you stay right there. James didn't wait for Grace to respond. He turned to his assistant hovering near the elevator. Conference room, now. Get Michael from legal and Sarah from international contracts. Grace stood frozen behind the reception desk. Her yellow gloves felt suddenly ridiculous. Heavy. Mr. Patterson, I need to finish my... Your shift can wait. James gestured toward the hallway. We have a crisis, and apparently you're the only one who can help. Bay. Victoria's perfectly manicured hand tightened around her coffee cup. Her jaw set in a thin line. Grace pulled off her gloves slowly, set them on the desk. Followed James down the corridor she'd mopped 1,000 times but never walked through. The conference room smelled like leather and expensive coffee. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. Grace had cleaned this room every night for 3 years, always after everyone left. She'd never sat at the table. James pulled out a chair. "Sit." Grace sat. The leather creaked under her weight. Michael and Sarah rushed in, tablets in hand, looking confused at Grace's presence. Their eyes swept over her uniform, the name badge that read Grace T. Facilities. James didn't explain. He just hit the speaker button on the conference phone. "We have Paris on hold. Berlin's waiting for a callback, and I need both contracts closed by end of business today, or we're looking at 17 million in losses." He looked at Grace. "Can you handle it?" Grace's throat went dry.
Yes. Then do it."
The next 2 hours unfolded like a controlled demolition of everything everyone in that room thought they knew. Grace started with Paris, reconnected the call, spoke in rapid French, her accent shifting subtly between formal business language and conversational ease. She caught a mistranslation in the contract amendment. The French team had interpreted old building standards as previous building standards, but the English version meant outdated building standards. The difference? 3 million euros in liability. Michael's pen stopped moving. He stared at Grace. "How did you—" Grace switched to the Berlin line without answering. Her German carried a slight Bavarian lilt that made the Frankfurt executive on the other end warm immediately. She explained the Paris confusion, clarified delivery timelines, and negotiated a 2-week extension that kept both deals alive. Sarah leaned forward. "Wait, you speak German too?" Before Grace could respond, James's phone lit up. "Sao Paulo's calling about the textile merger." Grace answered in Portuguese. Her words flowed with Brazilian rhythm, not the European Portuguese they'd been struggling with for weeks. She referenced specific clauses, asked about documents they'd been waiting on, took detailed notes in shorthand. James picked up his phone, pulled up Grace's employee file. Position: night shift custodial staff. Languages: none listed. Education: blank. Tenure: 3 years, 4 months. He set the phone down, looked at Grace like he was seeing a ghost. Moscow called with questions about manufacturing specs. Grace switched to Russian. Her pronunciation was precise, formal, the kind that comes from dedicated study. When she hung up, the room sat in absolute silence. Michael broke it. "How many languages do you speak?" Grace's fingers drummed once against the table. 9. 9. Sarah's voice came out flat, disbelieving. English, French, Haitian Creole, Spanish, Portuguese, German, Italian, Arabic, and Russian. James leaned back in his chair. It creaked in the quiet. "And you've been cleaning our floors for 3 years. It wasn't a question. Grace met his eyes. "Yes, sir." "Why didn't you ever apply for a translation position?" "I did." Grace's voice stayed level, calm. 17 times over the past 3 years, never made it past the automated screening. "Why not?" "No bachelor's degree. The system filters me out before anyone sees my application." Michael and Sarah exchanged glances. The kind that carries weight. The kind that says we built this system. James opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. "Grace, I need you to stay late today. We need to talk about your future here." Grace looked down at her uniform, at the name badge, at hands that had wrung out mops and scrubbed toilets and polished brass for 3 years. "I'm scheduled for a full shift tonight, Mr. Patterson. We're already short-staffed." "I'll handle your supervisor." Grace nodded once. "Okay." She stood, turned toward the door. "Grace?" She stopped. "Thank you for answering the phone. Grace's hand rested on the door handle. You're welcome. She walked back down the hallway. Past Victoria, who stood near the elevator, phone pressed to her ear, eyes tracking Grace's every step. Grace picked up her gloves from the reception desk, put them back on, returned to her mop. But something had shifted, cracked open, and 30 people had seen it happen. 5 o'clock came. Grace's shift supervisor left. The office emptied out in waves of designer suits and leather briefcases. Grace changed out of her uniform in the staff bathroom. Jeans, a simple sweater, the clothing she wore on the bus ride in every night. James was waiting in a small break room on the 3rd floor. 2 cups of coffee sat on the table. He gestured to the chair across from him. Grace sat. Tell me your story. Grace wrapped her hands around the coffee cup. The warmth felt good, grounding. My father was from Haiti. Came here in the 80s. He was a translator for the United Nations. French, Creole, Spanish, English. He taught me that language was a bridge. Was. He died when I was 12. Heart attack. No warning. James said nothing, just listened. My mother cleaned hotels. She took me with her sometimes when I was young. That's where I learned Spanish from the housekeeping staff. Portuguese from Brazilian guests who stayed for weeks at a time. Grace took a sip of coffee. It was good. Better than the break room coffee she usually drank at 2 in the morning. I got a full scholarship to Georgetown. Linguistics program. By 20, I was fluent in 6 languages. What happened? Senior year. My mother had a stroke. Massive medical bills. Someone had to take care of her. Someone had to pay for physical therapy, medications, all of it. Grace's voice didn't waver. She'd told this story to herself enough times that the edges had worn smooth. I dropped out. Took night jobs because they paid shift differential and offered health insurance. My mother needed both. And the other 3 languages? I never stopped learning. Library audiobooks during night shifts, YouTube, online forums. I added German, Italian, and Arabic over the next 10 years. James set down his cup. You applied here 17 times. 18, actually. The last one was 2 months ago. And every time, the system rejected me. No degree equals no interview. I understand how it works, Mr. Patterson. I'm not bitter about it. You should be. Grace met his eyes. Being bitter doesn't pay my mother's medical bills. Cleaning your floors does. It's honest work. It kept her alive. James sat back, exhaled slowly. How many times have you been in meetings where you could have helped? Where you understood everything being said but nobody asked? Grace's smile carried no humor. I clean 12 conference rooms every night, 5 days a week. You do the math. James pulled out his phone, typed something, set it down. We have a client dinner tonight. Italian textile manufacturer. Our Italian speaker called in sick 2 hours ago. I need you there. Grace's hands stilled around the coffee cup. Mr. Patterson, I appreciate this, but I'm not on payroll as you will be by the end of the day. Contract translator, immediate start. I still have to request tonight off from my supervisor. James picked up his phone, dialed, put it on speaker. Rick, James Patterson, I need Grace Thompson released from tonight's shift. The voice on the other end sounded confused, irritated. Grace? She's scheduled for a full shift. We're already down 2 people. I'm authorizing overtime pay for her replacement. This is a company priority. A pause. Then Rick's tone shifted. The irritation smoothed into something more careful. I didn't know Grace had other skills. Now you do. She's released. Thank you, Rick. James ended the call. Grace stared at the phone. He's going to ask me about this on Monday. Let him ask. 6 hours later, Grace walked into Sterling's steakhouse wearing clothes she'd bought on her lunch break. Simple black dress, nothing expensive, but clean, professional. She felt like an imposter. James met her at the entrance. 2 other Tanner executives stood with him. All 3 men wore suits that cost more than Grace's monthly rent. "Grace, thank you for coming." James gestured toward the private dining room. "The Romanos are traditional, old-school Italian business culture. They're already skeptical because Antonio called in sick. We can't afford another problem." Grace nodded. Her stomach twisted. Inside, Enzo and Mariella Romano sat at a long table, both in their 60s. Mariella wore elegant jewelry that caught the light. Enzo's suit was tailored, expensive, European cut. They spoke almost no English. James made introductions. "This is Grace Thompson, our linguistic consultant." Enzo nodded politely. His eyes were distant, assessing. The dinner started stiffly. Grace translated the basic pleasantries. The Romanos answered but offered little warmth. Then Enzo mentioned something about Lombardy textile mills. Grace responded, but not in standard Italian. She shifted into northern dialect, the kind spoken in manufacturing regions, technical terms for weaving patterns and fabric weights. Enzo's eyebrows lifted. He leaned forward slightly. Mariella asked about Grace's background, where she learned Italian. Grace could have lied, made it sound impressive, but she didn't. "I learned it because I loved it. After my shift ended at 2 in the morning, I'd study until 4. YouTube videos, Italian films, online language exchanges." Mariella's expression softened. Grace continued. "My grandmother used to say something. I don't know if it translates well, but..." She switched to Venetian dialect, reciting a proverb about weaving and patience. Mariella's hand went to her mouth. Her eyes filled. "That's what my nonna used to say. Word for word. She was from Venice." Enzo stared at Grace. "Where did you learn Venetian dialect?" "From wanting to understand the language completely, not just the words, the heart of it." The entire energy of the table shifted. Enzo started talking faster, asking questions, not about business, about craft, about tradition, about the dying art of quality textile work. Grace translated. But more than that, she engaged. She understood the references. She asked informed questions. By the time dessert arrived, Enzo had his reading glasses out. Contract on the table, pen in hand. He signed, looked at James. "You should pay her double whatever you're paying her." James smiled. "I'm working on it." Outside, James walked Grace to her car. A decade-old Toyota with a dent in the passenger door. "Grace, tomorrow, 9 a.m., my office. We're going to talk about making this permanent." Grace's hands trembled slightly as she unlocked her car. "I haven't spoken Italian with someone who actually cared about getting it right in 4 years." "Get used to it." James stepped back. "This is just the beginning." The next morning, Grace walked through the lobby in business casual. No uniform, no mop. A folder tucked under her arm marked Translation Services, Active Contracts. Employees stared, whispered. A few nodded. Most looked confused. She headed toward the executive floor, toward James's office. The break room door stood half open. Voices carried into the hallway. Victoria's voice, sharp, loud enough to be heard. "So we're just promoting housekeepers now? What's next? Let the parking attendant run finance?" Grace stopped walking. Her grip tightened on the folder. A man's voice. Derek from marketing. Uncomfortable. "I mean, she did close the Romano deal." "That's not the point." Another woman, Patricia from HR. "There are protocols, qualifications. You can't just discover someone speaks a few languages and hand them a corporate role." "It sets a terrible precedent," Victoria continued. "What does it say about those of us who actually went to school, who earned our positions the right way?" Grace's hand trembled slightly. The folder crinkled under her fingers. She considered turning around, going back to the basement, back to mops and buckets and invisibility. Footsteps behind her. "Don't." Grace turned. A young woman stood there, Jennifer Morrison, junior analyst. Grace had seen her working late, had emptied her trash bin dozens of times. "Don't you dare turn around." Jennifer's voice was quiet but firm. Grace said nothing.
I heard you speak yesterday. The calls, the dinner.
Jennifer stepped closer.
Do you know how many times I've translated Korean documents off the record?
How many midnight calls from Seoul I've handled because something came up?
Not once has it been added to my job description. Not once have I been compensated.
Grace's eyes widened slightly.
You're not the only one they've been using.
Jennifer's jaw set.
The difference is, you got seen. Don't waste it.
Grace took a breath, turned back toward the break room, pushed the door open. 3 heads turned. Victoria, Derek, Patricia, all holding coffee cups, all mid-conversation. Grace walked to the counter, set down her folder, poured coffee with steady hands. Victoria's smile was thin, sharp.
Something to say?
Grace turned, met her eyes.
Yes, thank you.
Victoria's smile faltered.
Excuse me?
For showing me exactly who I'm not going to become if this works out. Grace picked up her coffee, her folder, walked out. Behind her, silence. Then Derek's badly suppressed laugh. James's office was 3 doors down. His assistant waved Grace through. James looked up from his computer. His expression was carefully neutral. Victoria and Patricia filed an HR complaint this morning. They're saying proper hiring procedures weren't followed. Grace's stomach dropped. She set down her coffee.
I see.
Which is why I'm having HR conduct a full retroactive review of your hiring. James slid a document across his desk. As our new senior multilingual liaison, salaried position, full benefits, starting at $87,000. Grace stared at the paper. The number. It was more than triple her cleaning salary. But the complaint will be addressed by showing we followed every protocol. Background check completed this morning. Reference verification done. Skills assessment documented from yesterday's calls. You start Monday. Grace's hands shook as she picked up the contract.
I need to give Rick 2 weeks' notice. For my cleaning position. It's the right thing to do.
James nodded slowly. That's exactly why this is going to work. Grace sat down, read the contract. Every word, every clause. At the bottom, a line for her signature. She looked up.
Can I take this home? Read it carefully?
Take the weekend. But Grace? James leaned forward. This isn't charity. This is business. You're worth every dollar of that salary, probably more. Grace folded the contract, stood.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. James. If we're colleagues, it's James.
Grace smiled. Small, genuine.
Thank you, James.
Grace signed the contract on Sunday night, started Monday morning at 8. By 8:15, she was already in her first crisis. A nonprofit partner called. Syrian refugee briefing scheduled for 9. Their Arabic translator was stuck in traffic on the freeway. No estimated arrival time. Grace took the call, handled it. Classical Arabic mixed with Syrian dialect. The nonprofit director, a Syrian-American woman, thanked her afterward in Arabic. Grace responded fluently. The woman paused.
Where did you serve? Military or diplomatic?
Grace smiled.
Neither. I just listened.
Tuesday brought the Tokyo situation. An email from the U.S. team had offended the Japanese office. The tone was too casual, too direct. It violated unspoken cultural rules that no translation app could catch. Grace didn't just translate an apology. She rewrote it, used formal honorific language, added context notes explaining why the original message had landed wrong. The relationship was salvaged by noon. Wednesday, a junior associate was on the phone with Moscow. Grace walked past the conference room, heard the conversation through the glass. The associate was using informal Russian with a senior government official. A massive cultural misstep. Grace knocked, stepped inside. The associate looked relieved. Grace took over, switched to formal address, corrected the tone. After the call, she spent 20 minutes teaching the associate the difference. He took notes, said thank you 5 times. Thursday, the legal department called her. They'd been stuck for 3 weeks on a Brazilian contract. Portuguese, but filled with legal terminology no software could handle properly. Grace sat with the legal team for 6 hours. Translated, explained, clarified cultural context around Brazilian contract law. Information she'd learned from YouTube lectures and online legal forums during night shifts. Marcus Wright, head of legal, brought her coffee around hour 4. By hour 6, he was taking notes from her. "Where did you study international law?" "I didn't, I just got curious." Marcus stared at her, set down his pen. "We've had this contract on our desk for 3 weeks. You solved it in 6 hours. You would have solved it too. You just needed the language." Friday afternoon, Grace's calendar was full. Requests from 8 different departments. Translation needs in 12 languages. Some she could handle, some she couldn't. She was honest about both. James's assistant created a tracking document. Grace Thompson, value added. The numbers were undeniable. 12 million in contracts saved. 3.2 million in new deals closed, 1.8 million in non-profit partnerships secured, countless relationship repairs that had no dollar value but immeasurable weight. Someone set up a desk for her. Central location, near the main corridor. Visible, accessible. The same hallway where Victoria had humiliated her 2 weeks ago. Grace kept her old name badge in her desk drawer, the one that read Grace T. Facilities. Jennifer stopped by Thursday afternoon, saw it sitting there. "Why keep that?" Grace picked it up, ran her thumb over the plastic. "To remember what invisible feels like, so I never make anyone else feel that way." Jennifer nodded. Didn't say anything else. Friday evening, Grace sat in her car in the parking garage. Engine off, hands on the steering wheel. She was exhausted. 10-hour days, learning new industry terminology every night, going from invisible to indispensable in 1 week. The pressure was enormous. Her phone buzzed. Text from James. "Team lunch Monday. Want to celebrate your first week. You've earned it." Grace closed her eyes, took a long breath, started the car, drove home. Her mother was waiting. Dinner on the stove. The smell of Haitian cooking filled their small apartment. Grace had stories to tell. Monday arrived. Grace expected a casual team lunch. Sandwiches in the break room. Maybe pizza. She walked into the private dining room and stopped. Catherine Morrison sat at the head of the table. The CEO. 58. Silver hair. A reputation that made junior executives nervous. Grace had cleaned Catherine's office every night for 3 years. They'd never spoken. 8 senior leadership team members filled the other seats. James gestured to an empty chair. "Grace, sit." Grace sat. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Catherine didn't waste time on pleasantries. She tapped a folder on the table. "Grace, I've been reading about you." The folder was thick. Grace could see the edge of the tracking spreadsheet, the value-added numbers. "Tell me something." Catherine's eyes were sharp, assessing. "You've been with us 3 years. Why didn't you ever apply for a translator position?" Grace kept her voice steady. "I did, ma'am, 17 times. Never got past the automated screening." The room went silent. Someone from HR shifted in their seat. Her face went pale. Catherine's expression didn't change. "That ends today." She turned to James. You're presenting to the board next month on operational efficiency. I want Grace's story included. And I want a new policy proposal. Skills-based hiring audits for all current employees. James nodded, made a note. Catherine stood, raised her water glass. To Grace Thompson, who taught us that talent doesn't always arrive with the credentials we expect. And that says more about our systems than it does about the talent. 8 people raised their glasses. Grace's throat tightened. They ate, talked. Catherine asked questions, not interrogation, genuine curiosity. What languages did Grace speak? How did she learn them? What made her stay despite being rejected 17 times? Grace answered honestly, simply. She didn't embellish. After lunch, Catherine asked Grace to stay. The others filed out. The door closed. Just the 2 of them. Catherine sat back down. I started as a secretary in 1987. Someone gave me a chance to show what I could do with data analysis. Changed my life. She paused, looked out the window. At the city spread below them. I'd forgotten what that felt like. Thank you for reminding me. Grace's voice came out softer than she intended. You're welcome. But I didn't do it for that. I know. Catherine turned back. That's why this matters. She pulled out another document, slid it across the table. We're expanding internationally. Southeast Asia, Eastern Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa. I need someone to build our multilingual communications department. Not just translate. Build it from the ground up. Grace stared at the paper. You're offering me director-level position. You choose your team. Budget for hiring. I need an answer by Friday. Grace's hands trembled. I don't have a degree. People will question. Let them. Your work speaks. Catherine leaned forward. And Grace? We're establishing a continuing education fund. Any employee can finish their degree on company time and company dollar. You'd be eligible. Grace's eyes filled. She didn't cry, but it was close. My mother always said I'd finish. She just never imagined it would be like this. Catherine's expression softened. The path isn't what matters. That you're still walking it? That's everything. Grace nodded. Couldn't speak. Take until Friday. Think about it. Talk to your mother. Grace stood. Thank you, Ms. Morrison. Catherine, we're going to be working closely. It's Catherine. Grace left. James was waiting in the hallway. He didn't say anything, just nodded once. The mentorship had paid off. Tuesday evening. Grace drove to her mother's apartment, small 1-bedroom in a modest neighborhood. Haitian flags in windows, the smell of cooking spices in the hallway. She unlocked the door with her key. Marie Thompson stood at the stove, 71 years old, left side partially paralyzed from the stroke. She cooked with her right hand, one-handed, a skill that had taken years to master. Griot sizzled in the pan. Fried plantains waited on a plate. Grace set down her bag, grabbed a knife, started chopping vegetables without being asked. They worked in silence for a few minutes. The rhythm is familiar, comfortable. Marie spoke first, in Haitian Creole. You're quiet. What's wrong? Grace switched to Creole automatically. Nothing's wrong. Everything's just a lot. She told her mother about the week, the phone calls, the contracts, Catherine's offer, the director position, the chance to finish her degree. Marie stopped stirring, set down the spoon, turned to face Grace. Your father would say you're being foolish. Grace's heart sank. Marie continued. Because you're thinking too much. He always said you think when you should leap. She walked to the small shelf by the window, moved slowly, her left leg dragged slightly, pulled down an old photo. Grace's father, younger than Grace was now, sitting in a UN translation booth, headphones on, focused, alive.
He told me once when you were just a baby, when you can build a bridge with words, you have a responsibility to build it. That's what you're doing. Grace took the photo, studied her father's face. She had his eyes, his hands. But what if I fail? What if I'm not ready? These people have master's degrees, doctorates. Marie took the photo back, set it down gently. And you have something they studied for. You have love for every language you speak. That's not something they can teach in school. She cupped Grace's face with her good hand. Take the job. Make them wonder how they ever worked without you. Make your father proud. Grace's voice cracked. I want to make you proud. Grace. Marie's eyes were fierce. You cleaned toilets so I could have physical therapy. You learned Japanese while emptying trash cans. I've been proud since the day you were born. Now go be proud of yourself. Grace cried. Finally, let herself cry. Her mother held her, one-armed but fierce. After a moment, Grace noticed her mother's hand trembling. The stroke. The permanent reminder. Marie saw her notice. I'm still here, still cooking, still fighting. You think a corporate title is going to scare you after that? Grace laughed through her tears. No. Good. Now finish chopping those peppers. Dinner won't cook itself. Grace wiped her eyes, picked up the knife, made her decision. She'd take the job. Thursday morning, Grace's phone rang at 6 a.m. Catherine's voice, urgent. I need you, now. Emergency board meeting in 90 minutes. Grace sat up in bed. What happened? Factory collapse in Romania. 35 workers dead. Our biggest client manufactured products there. Media firestorm. The client's CEO is flying in from Berlin. We have no translator. Can you be here in 30 minutes? Grace was already moving. I'll be there in 20. She didn't shower, threw on yesterday's clothes, grabbed her bag, ran. The office felt different at 6:30 a.m., too quiet, too tense. Security waved her through without the usual badge scan. Catherine met her at the elevator. Schmidt Fashion Group, German conglomerate. Heinrich Schmidt is the CEO. He's devastated, terrified. His company's reputation is on the line. What languages will I need? German for Schmidt, Romanian for the local authorities and families, French for the International Labor Rights Organization, English for our team and media. Can you handle that? Grace's stomach twisted. Her Romanian was conversational, not fluent. This would push her to the edge. Yes. Grace. Catherine's hand landed on her shoulder. If you're not ready, I'm ready. The boardroom was chaotic, phones ringing, laptops open, 8 board members, 4 attorneys, a crisis PR manager, video screens showing feeds from Bucharest, and in the corner, looking smug, Victoria Caldwell, assigned to observe and assist. Heinrich Schmidt sat at the head of the table, mid-50s, an expensive suit rumpled from the overnight flight. His eyes were red. He spoke rapid German to his COO, gesturing frantically. Catherine made quick introductions. Mr. Schmidt, this is Grace Thompson, our Director of Multilingual Communications. Schmidt barely glanced at Grace, nodded, kept talking to his COO. Grace sat, opened her notebook, steadied her breathing. The first call came through. Romanian authorities. The factory owner was in custody. They needed a statement from Schmidt Fashion Group immediately. Grace handled it. Her Romanian was rougher than her other languages. She stumbled once on a technical term. Recovered. Kept going. The authorities accepted the statement. Scheduled a follow-up call. Grace's hands were shaking. Schmidt was speaking again, in German, fast, panicked. He was spiraling, talking about liability, about lawsuits, about his family's legacy being destroyed. Grace leaned forward, spoke in German, calm, measured. Mr. Schmidt, I need you to breathe. We will handle this. But I need you present. Can you do that? Schmidt stopped, looked at her. Really looked at her for the first time. He nodded. The next call. Families of the victims. A Romanian man, elderly, voice thick with grief and rage. He spoke through tears, through anger that felt like it could crack the phone line. Grace listened, translated for the room, but she added something the man hadn't said in words. He's not just asking for compensation. In Romanian culture, there's a concept: respect through acknowledgement. He needs to know his community's pain is seen, not just processed. Catherine absorbed that, looked at Schmidt. Can you speak to him directly? Through Grace? Schmidt's face crumbled. I don't know what to say. The truth, Grace said quietly. Tell him the truth. Schmidt took a breath, spoke in German. I am a father. I cannot imagine his pain. I am so deeply sorry. Grace translated. Her Romanian is soft, careful. The man on the phone went silent. Then he spoke. Grace heard him crying. When the call ended, the room sat in heavy quiet. Schmidt's head was in his hands. The third call came fast. French labor rights lawyer, sharp, aggressive, asking technical questions designed to create legal admissions. Grace translated the first question, then stopped, looked at Catherine. Before I translate his response, I need to clarify something. The lawyer is using specific French legal terminology. If Mr. Schmidt answers directly without understanding the full implication, it could be used against him in criminal proceedings. The lead attorney sat up straight. What's he asking exactly? Grace explained. The room erupted in whispered discussion. Grace turned to the phone, spoke in French, direct. Are you building a civil case or a criminal case? The lawyer paused, surprised. Both. Grace looked at Schmidt. Don't answer without your legal counsel present. The French lawyer's tone shifted, respectful. You are protecting your client. Good. We want accountability, not scapegoats. The calls kept coming. Romanian officials needed timelines. International observers wanted documentation. English-language media demanded statements. Schmidt's German headquarters needed a briefing. Grace coordinated everything. Assigned the PR manager to English media with talking points she drafted in 60 seconds. Handled Romanian authorities herself. Had Schmidt's COO manage the German office with a script she wrote in German for consistency. For 3 straight hours, Grace conducted an orchestra of crisis management in 5 languages. Her voice started to crack around hour 2. She stopped mid-sentence during a particularly painful testimony from a victim's widow. Apologized. I need 1 moment. Schmidt stood, walked to the sideboard, poured water himself, brought it to Grace. In German business culture, a CEO serving someone else was significant, an acknowledgement of equal importance. You are saving my company, but more than that, you are helping me do the right thing. Please, rest. Grace drank, breathed, continued. Victoria, sitting in the corner, leaned toward a board member, whispered loud enough to be heard. She's in over her head. Catherine's voice cut across the room. Victoria, leave. Now. I was assigned to... And now you're unassigned. Out. Victoria stood, face flushed. She grabbed her tablet and left. The door closed behind her. The room's energy shifted, lighter, focused. By 11 a.m., agreements were in place. Compensation for families, a memorial fund, scholarship program for victims' children. Labor organization accepted Schmidt's accountability statement. Media coverage began shifting from accusation to transparency. Schmidt stood when the last call ended, walked to Grace, bowed, a formal German bow, deep, from someone who rarely bowed to anyone. You did not just translate. You taught me how to be human in crisis. Grace stood on shaking legs. You did the hard part, Mr. Schmidt. I just helped you say it. The room emptied slowly, executives filing out, attorneys packing laptops. Catherine stayed, sat beside Grace in the now quiet boardroom. You just managed a multi-million-dollar international crisis in 5 languages. Still think you're not ready for that director position? Grace looked at her hands. They were still trembling. I'll take the job. Catherine smiled. Good, because we're announcing it on Friday. 1 month later, quarterly all-hands meeting. 300 employees packed into the main auditorium. International offices live-streamed in. Screens glowed along the back wall showing Tokyo, London, Sao Paulo. Grace sat in the middle section, row 12. Just another employee. She didn't know what was coming. Catherine Morrison walked onto the stage. The room quieted. 1 month ago, we faced a crisis that could have destroyed a 40-year partnership and our reputation. Today, I want to show you what saved us. The screen behind her lit up. News footage. Industry analysts praising Tanner and Associates' handling of the Romania crisis. Heinrich Schmidt giving an interview. I owe everything to one person's courage and skill. The video cut to security footage. The conference room. Grace answering phones, speaking Romanian, German, French. Her voice steady while everyone around her panicked. The auditorium went silent. Employees turned in their seats, looking for Grace. She sank lower in her chair. Catherine continued. Grace Thompson was our night custodial staff. Now she's our director of multilingual communications. But her story represents something bigger. A new slide appeared. Hidden talent audit, results. After Grace's promotion, we conducted a company-wide skills inventory. Here's what we found. The numbers appeared one by one. 23 employees spoke languages beyond their job requirements. 14 had technical skills never utilized. 31 had advanced degrees they'd never disclosed, assuming they were irrelevant to their current roles. 8 were former professionals, teachers, engineers, nurses, lawyers, all working in non-credentialed positions due to immigration status, career gaps, or economic necessity. The room stirred, whispers spreading like ripples. Effective immediately, we're launching the Grace Thompson Initiative. Catherine listed the new policies, skills-based hiring reviews. Any employee could request reassessment for different roles. $10 million continuing education fund. Multilingual bonus structure. Human review of all automated resume screening. Grace, come up here. Grace froze. People around her turned, gestured. She stood, legs shaking, walked down the aisle, up the stairs, onto the stage. The applause started before she reached Catherine. 300 people standing. The sound was deafening. Grace's eyes burned. She blinked hard. Catherine handed her something. A new ID badge. Grace looked down. Expected to see her name, her title. Instead, it read, Grace Thompson, Director of Multilingual Communications. And below, in smaller print, Employee Number 01, Grace Thompson Initiative. Your employee number resets today. You're the first member of a new system, one that sees people, not just credentials. Catherine stepped back, gestured to the microphone. Grace stood there, unprepared, unscripted, 300 faces looking at her. She cleared her throat. I don't have a prepared speech. I didn't know this was happening. A nervous laugh escaped. The audience laughed with her. Warm, supportive. A few months ago, I was invisible. I don't mean metaphorically, I mean people looked through me. I cleaned around meetings, emptied your trash, restocked your coffee, and that was okay. That work has dignity. Her voice steadied. But somewhere we all started believing dignity had a hierarchy, that some work matters more, that some people matter more. She paused,
found James in the audience. He nodded. I'm standing here not because I'm exceptional. I'm here because someone finally looked. James Patterson looked. Catherine Morrison looked. Jennifer Morrison looked. Grace scanned the crowd, found Victoria. Their eyes met. And yes, some people looked and saw a problem to fix. But even that resistance made me stronger. So thank you to everyone who doubted. You taught me to prove, not just promise. Her voice caught. She didn't hide it. My father was a translator for the United Nations. He died believing I'd carry on his work. My mother cleaned hotels believing I'd get to do something more. And for a long time, I thought I'd failed them both. Silence. Complete. The kind where 300 people hold their breath together. But I didn't fail. I just hadn't been seen yet. And if you're out there, in this room, in our satellite offices, anywhere, feeling invisible, feeling like your talents are wasted. Grace leaned closer to the microphone. Please, let someone see you. Let yourself be seen. Because it only takes one phone call, one moment, one person looking up instead of past, to change everything. The room exploded. Not polite applause, something deeper. People are crying. Someone started chanting Grace's name. Jennifer Morrison. Others joined. Grace stepped back from the microphone. Catherine squeezed her shoulder. After the town hall, employees approached Grace in waves. The security guard who spoke fluent Arabic. I filled out the skills form today. An assistant who taught coding to kids on weekends. I applied for the IT analyst opening. A cafeteria worker, a trained chef from Colombia. HR called me about the corporate catering position. Grace hugged them, took their names, promised to follow up personally. Then Victoria appeared. The crowd parted. Tension crackled. Victoria stopped 3 feet away. I owe you an apology. Grace nodded. Okay. Not okay. What I did, in the lobby, in the break room, I was protecting a system I benefited from. I was wrong. Grace studied her. Waited. I filled out the skills form, too. Turns out I've been using my French to help the Paris office informally for 6 years. Never asked for credit. Never thought I could. Victoria extended her hand. I'm applying for the Senior Europe Liaison position. If you'll consider me. Grace shook her hand. Firm. Brief. If you're qualified, you'll get a fair shot. That's the whole point. That evening, Grace returned to the 3rd floor, the conference room where everything started, where she'd answered that first phone call. The new cleaning crew was working. Grace introduced herself, asked their names, asked if they spoke other languages, if they had other skills. One woman, Rosa, admitted she spoke 4 languages: Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, English. But I don't have papers. I'm afraid to say too much. Grace pulled out her phone, opened the skills form. The new policy doesn't require immigration status disclosure for skills review. Would you like me to help you fill this out? Rosa's eyes filled with tears. Grace sat with her, right there on the floor, helped her complete the form. Rosa set down her cleaning supplies to type on Grace's phone. When she finished, she reached for the trash bag she'd been filling. Grace picked it up first, tied it, placed it in the bin. Rosa stared. Miss Thompson, you don't have to. I remember what this feels like. I never want to forget. In her office, Grace kept her old name badge. Grace T. Facilities. Framed on the wall. Below it, a small plaque she'd made herself. To remember what invisible looks like, so I can see everyone else. 6 months later. Grace's department had grown to 12 multilingual specialists, 47 languages covered. Translation costs were reduced by 40% while quality improved. 0 international incidents since the department's founding. The Grace Thompson Initiative had produced results the board couldn't ignore. 89 employees were promoted or transferred to better-fit roles. 34 enrolled in degree completion programs. 12 new languages added to company capabilities. Victoria Lane thrived as Senior Europe Liaison. She and Grace weren't friends, but they were colleagues, professional, respectful. Rosa worked as a junior translator. Her citizenship application was in process. Company lawyers helped file the paperwork. Grace enrolled at Georgetown. Online program. Linguistics degree. Expected graduation in 18 months. Her mother attended physical therapy 3 times a week, covered by Grace's upgraded health insurance. The tremors had improved, not gone, but better. They'd moved to a 2-bedroom apartment. Grace had a home office, a desk, a window. On a Sunday afternoon, Grace drove to the cemetery, flowers in hand, yellow roses, her father's favorite. She sat on the grass beside his headstone, talked to him like she used to when she was young. "Papa, I know you wanted me to work for the UN like you. I'm not there, but I think I'm doing something you'd be proud of anyway." The wind moved through the trees. Leaves rustled. "I'm building bridges, not between countries exactly, between who people are and who they're allowed to become." She set the flowers down, arranged them carefully. "I hope that's enough." The wind picked up, warmer, gentler. Grace smiled. It felt like an answer. Her phone buzzed. Email from Heinrich Schmidt. Subject line, scholarship recipients. Photos of young Romanian students. The first scholarship recipients from the Memorial Fund. 5 students are studying translation, international relations, and engineering. 1 girl wanted to study linguistics. Her essay quote, "To build bridges like Miss Grace." Grace closed her eyes, breathed. 6 months ago, she'd been mopping floors, invisible, ignored. Now she was changing lives, not just hers, others. That was the part that mattered most. Here's what I want you to remember. Every day you walk past someone with a gift you don't see. The barista who speaks 3 languages, the security guard who writes poetry, the driver who's a trained engineer. You have a choice. Keep walking. Or look. It doesn't take much. A conversation, a question, a willingness to see beyond the uniform, the title, the assumptions. The person you notice might change the world, or they might just change your world. Either way, it matters. So here's my question for you. Who are you not seeing? And what will you do about it? If this story moved you, here's what you can do right now. Notice someone's hidden talent? Tell them today. Not tomorrow. Today. Manage a team? This week, ask each person about skills beyond their job description. You might be shocked by what you learn. Have hiring power. Challenge 1 automated rejection. Look at what people can do, not just what their resume says they are. Share your story in the comments. Have you ever been underestimated because of your job title? Have you ever overlooked someone's talent? Tell us. Let's learn from each other. And if you believe workplaces should work differently, hit that like button. Share this video. Subscribe for more stories that challenge how we see people. Because this story doesn't end with Grace Thompson. The real Grace Thompson Initiative is bigger than one company. It's a movement, a coalition of businesses committed to skills-first hiring, to see people, to build bridges. Companies are already adopting these policies, creating their own audits, finding their own hidden talent. You can too. One more thing. If you're the person who's been invisible, if you're the one with talents nobody's asked about, hear this clearly. You are not your job title. You are not your circumstances. You are not the system that overlooked you. Keep learning. Keep growing. Keep believing in what you know you can do. Your phone call is coming. Your moment is coming. Be ready when it rings. Talent is everywhere. Opportunity isn't. Let's fix that.